Welcome to the Let's Run Fit with Be Lit podcast, your go-to podcast for all things health, wellness, and most importantly, running. I'm your host, Be Lit. Today we have an exciting episode lined up for you. In today's episode, we'll be delving into the world of hydration gear, discussing the different options available and helping you make an informed choice based on your individual needs and preferences. Hydration is the lifeblood of every runner, plays a vital role into keeping us energized, focused, and performing at our best. So let's lace up your shoes, grab a water bottle, and let's get started. Before we dive too deep into the gear itself, let's take a moment to understand why hydration is so crucial for runners. Hydration is the key to maintaining the delicate balance of fluids in our bodies, and when it comes to running, it becomes even more essential than that. During exercise, especially endurance activities like running, our body loses water through sweat to regulate body temperature. If we don't replenish those fluids, it can lead to dehydration, and that negatively impacts your performance, and it also poses very, very large health risks that could end up with you going to the ER in the end. So proper hydration has a significant impact on your running performance because of this. When you're well hydrated, your body functions optimally, allowing you to perform at its best. Hydration helps regulate body temperature, ensuring that you don't overheat during intense workouts. It lubricates your joints. It reduces the risk of injuries like sprains and strains. And if you've ever had one of those aren't the easiest to heal, or sometimes do they ever fully heal. So this is really important. Adequate hydration also helps transport nutrients to your muscles, providing them with the energy that they need to keep you going strong. More than that, it also aids in the removal of the waste products that are generated during exercise and promoting faster recovery. If anyone's ever been sore after a workout, you know how important it is to want to try to prevent that. And just simply hydrating better could be a huge factor in preventing that soreness. So as you can tell, understanding the importance of hydration is definitely the first step in optimizing your running performance. By keeping your body hydrated, you'll experience improved endurance, reduced fatigue, enhanced focus, and better overall well-being. So remember, whether you're a beginner or an experienced runner, or just someone lifting weights or starting to walk, whatever it is that you're doing, staying hydrated is the foundation for achieving your physical and mental health goals on your fitness journey. So now that I'm off my teeny tiny soapbox about why hydration is crucial for runners, let's dive into the various gear options available to you to stay hydrated during your runs so you can make a really well-informed choice. I'm sure you already know that there is no shortage of options for hydration gear. So we're going to kind of dive into each one of them a little bit and explore the pros and cons of running with them so you really know what's going to work best for your runs and for you. Everybody's different. You can't just say, I do this, so you should too. It's not that easy. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the, just traditional water bottle, the thing you think of when someone says, hey, grab me that water bottle. So this one's going to be widely available and it's going to be affordable. And that's just going to be really well. It's going to be easy to refill and clean. It's going to be familiar. It's going to be comfortable. And if you hate the environment a little bit, you can just use disposable water bottles, the plastic ones you get at the store, and, drink and throw away. Please don't do that. Please refill. Help the environment, right? Plastic doesn't go away. But those are all going to just be the, pros of those options. It is a pro as much as I don't like it. But with cons, you got to remember that it is cumbersome to carry something on long runs. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to run with your phone. It's a little annoying. So having to actually hold on to that bottle and make sure it's in your hand, that can, start to cause a problem, especially if you're getting sweaty and the bottle starts to slip. Also, when you have that, you've got to worry about your running form as well. Whenever you carry anything from a water bottle, even a cell phone, it does potentially affect your running form because now your weight in your body isn't distributed as equally. It also has a limited carrying capacity, so it could require frequent refills depending on how big of a bottle you picked. Because if you pick one that's super easy to carry, it probably doesn't hold a lot of water. But if you pick one that's like, oh yeah, this can get me through my whole, 2-hour run, well, now you're carrying a ginormous thing of water, and that's going to be really hard. So you really just kind of have to do that kind of pro-con list in your head of how far are you going? Are you able to carry it? Is it going to be too heavy and affect your run? And go from there. The biggest con I mentioned with the traditional water bottle was having to hold it. But lucky for us, there are people in the running community who have already thought about this, and they have literally made reusable handheld running water bottles that come with a strap that kind of attaches it to your hand, so it just kind of stays with you and you don't really have to worry about holding it. They're very ergonomically designed, so that strap really gives you that secure grip. They got a little bit of kind of like that rubberized texturing on them, so that way it doesn't start to slip when you get sweaty, and it just kind of makes it a little bit more convenient, and not a full hands-free option, but a little bit more of a hands-free option because you're not having to grip it. It's just kind of attached to your hand. And some models even come with additional pockets for storing other things like keys or energy gel, or a small amount of money to get something to eat while you're on your run if you're like me and you get hungry all the time. You have all of those options to you. The cons are about the same as the traditional water bottle because it does still have a limited water capacity and can still affect your running form. It's going to be a little bit less because you're not having to grip, so it's not changing the amount of muscles that are used to hold on to it, but it could still because of the weight distribution. And if you are someone who has issues with things like on your hand strapped to you, like I know I have since I was younger, anything touching the back of my hand when I run drives me nuts. That can cause some discomfort, and it can also cause chafing over longer distances because it does move just enough that it could start to cause that chafing or a blister. But again, that doesn't happen to everybody, so it's all what works best for you. One of the options that I use more often than not is my hydration belt. So this is going to have like an actual, almost like a fanny pack, there's always that connotation with a fanny pack, but it's very useful, that holds multiple bottles of water for you around your waist. This means you can carry more water because it's attached to you at the waist, and it's not going to be in your hand holding on weight to your arms, causing fatigue over time. However, there obviously is still a limit. You only want so much going around your waist at one time. And because there's normally at least 2 or 4, they go in even numbers. Sometimes they can do 3 if they have one right in the square of your back and one on each hip. It distributes the weight a little bit more evenly around your waist to give you a little bit better balance so it doesn't affect your running form as much. And some even offer additional storage space for your nutrition gels, the cell phone keys, credit card, kind of the stuff that was from the same water bottle situation. So it's all kind of good pros. I like it because it's around my waist and I don't have to think about it because I can't, like I mentioned, can't do things on my hands. But the cons: they can be a little bulky and they may shift or bounce a little bit during your run, especially at higher speeds. I have had more than one race where for some reason that belt would not stay down and it just starts riding up until it's like at my belly button and I'm having to pull it back down every couple seconds, and it drove me nuts. This doesn't happen every time to me. I don't know why it happens here and there, but it can. Another thing is you do kind of have to worry about how high the water bottles are depending on how long your arms are. So for me, my elbows do hit the water bottle, so I kind of have to hold mine at like a weird kind of wonky angle so that way it doesn't go with my arm carriage. Also, when you're having to adjust and access the bottles while you're running, it can be a little bit of a pain because they are going to be locked in there because obviously you don't want them bouncing out. So if you kind of get to where your hands aren't very functional when you're on those longer runs, trying to pull that little strap over the edge of the bottle to get the bottle out and putting it back in, it can be a little cumbersome. And it's just a couple extra steps. It just depends on who you are and how functional your small movements are whenever you're doing your runs and how long you're running that can go. You can also have a little bit of discomfort from the pressure points around the waist, but again, that's not everybody. I know I personally haven't had issues with that, but I do know other people who have mentioned that it feels like it's digging into them and it starts to kind of feel really off-putting after a while because, again, like everything, nothing is one size fits all. So those are kind of some of your pros and cons for the hydration belt. I know kind of random pro, that's just me. And if you are a puppy lover like myself, I can attach my dog's leash to the belt. So that way I don't have to hold a leash when I'm running. And I can also put little doggy bags in there. So kind of like a little tip for if you're running with a doggo. The option that I use most often for the majority of my runs, because when I carry water, it's normally a longer run, would be my hydration pack. This is going to be the actual little book bags, like the little camel packs that you think of, that have like the little water bladder and tube system offering a large capacity of water. This really gives you that hands-free option, promotes natural arm movement, and it's more suitable for long runs, trail runnings, and anything where refilling can be a challenge because it can hold more. My pack itself can hold 2 liters of water. It has the tube that comes out that doesn't have like a locking mechanism. You just kind of bite the tip to get the water to come out. It attaches so it's not bouncing, anything like that, which makes it very useful. So the one thing that I do mention that it is a little bit bulkier and heavier compared to other options. I definitely feel at the beginning of the race, like I'm like, oh my gosh, when can I drink all this water to get this weight off my back? Because when it's really full, you do feel that pressure and it's a little off-putting. You also have to be careful with the fitting and adjustment because otherwise it can bounce or cause chafing. I know personally, no matter what I do, if I'm only running in a sports bra, I do get chafing on my stomach. It doesn't hurt during the race. It hurts after the race, but it is there. And sometimes I'll get it on the inside of my arms where my arm is kind of going over those straps over and over on the side. So it just kind of really depends. It can cause heat to trap against your back, which can be a little discomforting in hot weather. I kind of fight that because I fill mine up with ice. So I actually have a cool pack against my back for at least a good hour or so before, the ice melts, but it gives me that kind of cold water. So all of these things are good. Another thing that I would mention is that when it comes to the fitting, what it fits when it's full and what it fits at the end can be a little bit different. So you do kind of have to worry about adjusting it just a little bit during the actual run itself. But you just, it's whatever works for you. I do like these because it gives me the option to also carry a lot more of my fuel with me. It has pockets on the front, the pocket on the back. It's hard to get into the actual book bag part, but I can actually go through and get my nutrition and my applesauce or my chews or the salt tabs or whatever I need and have it there for me a lot easier than any of the other options. So the next thing that I want to mention for you is not technically a gear itself, but it's just alternative hydration strategies for you if you know that those options aren't for you, whether because you can't carry anything, because I know there are some races that will only allow certain types of hydration to be brought in. For example, it won't even allow you to bring a pack. Things like that, just depending on the security levels of that race. So first off, if you're in a race itself, they normally do have hydration stations and aid stations. These can have anything ranging from Gatorade to water to actual chews or gels, things like that. So that would be an option for you. I always suggest, if possible, to bring your own hydration because sometimes the worst happens and they don't have enough. No race is ever going to intentionally not have enough water, but it does happen depending on how hot and if people are taking a lot of it for drinking and then some of it for dumping on their heads and just kind of wasting it in that way. It's not wasting, but you know what I mean. When it comes to you in the back when you're dying of thirst and someone dumped it on your head, that's going to look like wasting, right? So that would be an option if you're in a race itself. If you are in training, you can do something still a little bit similar. You just run near water fountains. So if you know you're going to run through the park, just kind of take note of where the water fountains are so you can plan to run by those at the intervals that you need hydration, because you can kind of start to plan how often you're going to need it. So that's just going to be easy access. You don't have to carry gear. However, there could be limited availability of water fountains in your area depending on where you are. The water sometimes can be very warm coming out of those water fountains depending on where you are. And at least in my area, the water can taste a little funny coming out of the water fountains. So it all depends on where you are, how good of an option that is. Another thing that you can do if you live in the correct area is hide water bottles on the course you plan to run. This gives you a very personalized, convenient hydration points wherever you need. However, you really do have to plan ahead, and you do have the potential risk of someone tampering with those bottles. So depending on where you are, depends on if that's an option. Where I live, that would not be an option. Unfortunately, we do have a high crime rate. I don't know how much people will be digging looking for water bottles, but you do know that there are people in this area who come in with less than good intentions as tourists, and sometimes they will come and they could mess with your bottle and do something to it, add something to it, whatever it is, and that could be a problem. So just kind of think that through if that is going to be the option. That would be a good option if you're kind of like running on private property and things like that if you have a lot of land. You could also just have support from a friend. They could be in a car or a bicycle, whatever it is, and they could help you by carrying it depending on what they're doing. Obviously, if they're running with you, don't make them carry your water. That's just rude. But if they're on like a bike, they can wear a book bag a lot easier than you can, especially if they're in a car. They can drive away and not have to carry it. So all of those could be something because it would give you a good customized hydration support strategy during those long runs. But it does involve coordination and availability, and there are safety constraints. For example, depending on where you're running, they can't necessarily be in a car or on a bike next to you. You have to really pay attention to the safety of where they're going to be and where you're going to be during the actual handoff, because if they're on a bicycle and they're handing it to you, you don't want to accidentally knock them off their bike or Worse, they run over you or something. So you really do have to be very careful in that safety regards. If you're running on streets and they're in a car, they can't just stop in the middle of the road. So you do have to have that coordination planned ahead of time. Plus, you just kind of have to have a good friend who's willing to sacrifice an hour or two just to follow you around to give you water. But like I say in pretty much every episode, is that remember, the perfect solution is going to depend on you. The perfect hydration gear for you is going to depend on factors such as your running distance, personal preferences, special needs, anything like that. And it's essential to experiment and find the gear that allows you to stay hydrated comfortably and enhance your overall running experience. When I first started, I swore I would never touch a hydration bag. I was like, I am never going to carry water on my back. You look weird. You have this big lump, it's going to slosh. But guess what? That is now pretty much my go-to because it's the easiest way to have the most amount of water. I'm not able to really attach my doggo to it as well. So when I'm running with a dog, I bring the belt. But it is there, and it's what works for me now. And if you are worried about the sloshing in a hydration pack, there is actually a trick. When you fill it up and you kind of seal it, there's going to be that air bubble. Flip it upside down so the air goes to the top to where the actual tube connects, and then kind of get that air in that tube, and then just kind of suck on the little tube a little bit to get that air out. And that's going to make that kind of vacuum seal on the inside, so that way there's not air for the water to slosh inside the pack and make that extremely annoying noise. I actually had a race where I forgot to do that, and I was about 2 or 3 miles into this half marathon, and I took my pack off, held it upside down, and started doing this process, trying to get the air out because it was driving me nuts. That sound on my back was just like telling me that I was losing my mind. So that is something you can do if you know sounds are very, very annoying. So now that we explored all the pros and cons of each hydration gear option, you can really make an informed decision though based off your preferences and running goals. And remember, like I said, the right gear is all about finding what works best for you. What's best for me is not going to be what's best for you. So you've got to really try it out to see what is going to be the best option. The last thing that I want to cover before I let you go today is going to be the frequency and types of hydration. Again, not one size fits all, so it's essential to understand how often to hydrate and what types of fluids you need to consume during your run. So we're going to cover hydration more depth in a future episode, so don't feel like this is all you're ever going to get. But I just want to touch on a couple key points to make sure you really know what you're going to be putting in that hydration gear once you get it going. Firstly, it's extremely important to listen to your body's signal and drink when you're thirsty. Thirst is a very reliable indicator that your body needs fluids. However, it is essential to note that you may not always have the most accurate gauge whenever you are on your actual runs, and that it can kind of lag behind on your actual hydration needs when you're running. But drinking when you're thirsty in your general day-to-day can make sure that you're hydrated going into the run, so when you have that little bit of a lag behind your actual hydration needs on the workout itself, you are at least kind of had the tank topped off, and you can kind of work from there to figure it out. So it is very beneficial to adopt a proactive approach to staying ahead of your thirst on the runs, even though you definitely want to signal when you're thirsty, but you always need to make a mental note that, hey, I just felt thirsty, so I should have probably drank ahead of time, and use that to adjust for your personal hydration needs in the future. A general guideline that I give to all of my athletes is to drink about 5 to 10 ounces of fluid about every 15 to 20 minutes during your run. Remember, individual hydration needs can vary a lot based off your body size, your sweat rate, your weather conditions, your exercise intensity, so many tiny things. So it's crucial to experiment and find the right balance for you. Some people cannot take 10 ounces of fluid every 15 to 20 minutes. Their body just can't function at that. Others need so much more than 5 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes. So just kind of go on your training runs and do a little bit of both and kind of in the middle and just see what fits and makes your body feel the best. Because when it comes to hydration, it's not just about the water itself. You also have to remember electrolytes also play a huge role in your hydration needs. You need things like sodium, potassium, and magnesium because they all play vital roles in maintaining your proper fluid balance and supporting your muscle function. I always suggest that someone brings at least some type of an electrolyte-rich sports drink. This could be electrolyte tablets that go into your water. It could be a natural source like coconut water. It could be things like Gatorade and Tailwind and all of those other things that you have. And just getting those into your hydration routine. If you're carrying a belt, have a bottle of water and have a bottle of some type of sports drink. If you have a pack, maybe do some type of a watered down sports drink or a stronger sports drink depending on what your sweat rate is and what you need. And all is just based off you And you really need to think about those long runs and when you're exercising in hot and humid conditions, and that sweat rate is going to increase the amount of electrolytes coming out of your body and the amount that you need to replenish. I know that was a very brief overview of hydration when it comes to frequency and types of fluids, but it is going to give you a good starting point to know what to do while you're getting out into the heat, or it might be cooling off depending on where you're at. But we're going to get into this detailed topics in the future. It's going to be things like electrolytes and pre and post-race hydration strategies and personalized hydration plans to optimize your running performance. All of that is coming, but now you know what to do just to get you started. And as we wrap up this episode, please keep in mind that hydration is a vital component of your running journey. By understanding the frequency of hydration, types of fluids you consume, and choosing the right gear, you're going to be setting yourself up for success and achieving your physical and mental health goals. So thank you for joining me on this adventure through the world of hydration gear. Remember, stay hydrated, stay motivated, and keep running towards your health and wellness goals. See you next time. Thanks so much, runners, for spending time with me and listening to this episode. If you liked what you heard, please hit that subscribe button and leave me a review. I always love to hear from my listeners. And if you want more Let's Run Fit in your life, find me on Instagram at Let's Run Fit with BLit. Until next time, runners! The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for medical or professional advice. Please always consult a medical professional if you're seeking medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The Let's Run Fit podcast is not liable for risk or issues associated with using or acting upon the information in this podcast.